This is episode 74 of Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews and fun conversations with interesting people. In front of my microphone today, I have Rachael Martin. Hello.
Hello.
I just saw you yesterday at Ulta.
At Ulta,
I know.
which is, I have a 18-year-old daughter, so that's our guilty pleasure there at Ulta.
Do you go there a lot?
I try to go there less, but yes, we're there often.
Well, I was there too. It's dangerous.
It is.
It's a dangerous place for sure. It's weird though, seeing a podcast interview the day before the podcast. It's like it's meant to be.
It is.
It was meant to be.
Aligned.
A little progress report before we get into Rachael Martin. Obviously, we're in a different location. If you're watching this podcast right now, we're literally in the corner of the Mail Tribune building in downtown Medford because, as a lot of people know, KTVL and the Mail Tribune and Rosebud Media are sort of partnering together. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been moving into this building. I was just telling Rachael, it's been kind of a pain in the ass, actually.
I bet.
We're doing newscasts over the old KTVL building, and we're doing rehearsals in this building. So a lot of us have been shuttling back and forth over the last 2 weeks. We have one more week of rehearsals. We launch from the new set on Monday, October 28th. So I'm super excited that the shuttling will stop, but also our new set's very pretty. I'll give you a tour before you leave.
Great.
Because it's gorgeous. Let's get back to you, Rachael Martin. Let's tell everybody who you are. A lot of people know you from Red Lily, winemaker,
Right.
owner,
Right.
Dishwasher,
Dishwasher.
toilet cleaner.
Absolutely. All the hats.
What's the status of Red Lily right now?
So we are, in terms of harvest-wise, or just...
I mean, all of it. I know you're still harvesting, but there's been talk Red Lily's for sale.
Right.
Okay, still for sale?
It is still for sale.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
Let's back up from the wee beginnings of Rachael. Where are you from originally?
So I grew up in Medford. So my parents were both school teachers here locally. And so I graduated in 1989, last of the 80s ladies from South Medford.
Nice.
So definitely have gotten to see the growth and the changes in the valley over time, which has been really great to be a part of. And then to be back as an adult here, having a business and participating in the community in that way has been a really great full circle on it.
Did you grow up with siblings?
I did. So I have a younger, taller sister.
A younger, taller
I always
sister.
say I'm the older, shorter one. So, and she works with me out at the winery, which is great.
Oh,
too.
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've probably seen her.
You probably have. She's the younger, taller version of me.
She's the younger, taller version of you.
Right.
And you're, and that's it? Just a sister?
Just a sister.
Okay. And then, I don't want to say just a sister.
Right.
She's probably amazing.
She is amazing.
Your maiden name is what?
Sullivan.
Sullivan. So are there people who remember Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan as like teachers?
Absolutely. So whenever you go anywhere with my dad around town, because he taught for 30 years at McLaughlin, and he taught art there. So when I went to McLaughlin, it was like, perfect because your dad was the crazy art teacher. He wasn't like the, hard math teacher. But you go anywhere with him and everybody says, "Hey, Mr. Sullivan."
So he was loved.
He was loved, yeah.
Is loved.
Is loved, yes.
And mom taught what?
She taught elementary at White City and also Jacksonville.
Wow, 2 teachers.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up with 2 teachers in the house?
It was great because they had the summers off, and so we spent a lot of time in the summers together as a family, and so it was a good, I did a lot of homework in my mom's classroom after school and on the weekends when she did lesson prep. So it was a great, pretty idyllic upbringing here in the valley with them.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then did you go away to school?
I did. So I went away to University of Nevada.
You went to UNR? Or
Yes, UNR.
Are you serious?
Did you go to UNR?
I graduated from UNR.
No way.
Yes.
Wolfpack.
Right?
Absolutely.
This is why I love this podcast.
That is a gem of a school.
It really is.
It is. And so when I went there, it was cheaper to pay out-of-state tuition there than in-state tuition in Oregon. And it is a little hidden gem of schools, I feel.
Thank you for saying that,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are like, they're always like UNLV, and I'm like, no.
Right.
UNR. Sorry, UNLV. UNR is beautiful campus.
It is.
It is a Reno, Tahoe area is a beautiful part of the country.
Absolutely.
I love that school.
Right.
Holds a very special place in my heart. You went there when?
So I graduated from there in 1994.
Okay, awesome. What'd you study?
Criminal law.
Shut up.
Perfect for winemaking, right?
Did you want to be a cop?
I did. So, yes. So I graduated in that field, and during college, I interned at U.S. Customs. Mm-hmm. And then right out of school, I got a job working for a private company that was headquartered in Sparks, Nevada. And they produced luxury luggage and leather goods, much like the same price point as like Louis Vuitton, Chanel.
Oh, fancy.
And they had a counterfeiting problem, mostly overseas. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay, we got to back up. We got to go back to UNR. Have you seen it lately?
I have. So I tried to sell it to my son Riley when he was looking at colleges. So, I followed him around and tried to not be like you're dragging your mom with you.
Right.
But it has really grown up since we've been there.
It really, really has. I went to, or I should say I applied to a lot of schools back east, Clemson, USC, College of Charleston, but I just couldn't. I graduated from high school in Las Vegas, so I had that in-state tuition thing going for me.
Right.
But the journalism program there was so good.
So good.
And it's even better now.
Yeah.
But at the time, this was in 98, it was such a good program. It was competitive with programs at Stanford and other schools on the West Coast. And so it just made more sense to go to UNR. And I was close to family.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. I love the quads. Because the
Yes.
school's designed by a lot of the East Coast colleges. It had that in mind with a lot of
Right.
quads. And that's so funny.
That is so
Did you join
funny.
a sorority?
I didn't. I didn't do that. Did you ever sleep on the N that's painted on the hill?
I helped paint the N my freshman year. And the people who are walking around making it sound really great, like, hey, we're going to go up and paint the N. There's a big, huge N for Nevada up on a mountainside that you can see from the stadium. And it's a hike up there. It's like all rocks, I believe.
It is.
Yeah. And
it's a lot of sagebrush.
Oh, a ton of sagebrush.
You gotta work for it.
Well, they made it sound really great. Here we're just like a group of dumb freshmen, me and my dorm mate and some other girls. And we're like, yeah, let's go paint the N. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Right.
We have a new reporter, Shelby Riley. She's a UNR graduate.
Okay.
So we got a little UNR community
Gosh,
here.
I guess. Who knew?
I love that. But
Yeah.
I love that school. I have my professors there because it's so small. It's super affordable.
It is, absolutely.
It's just such an amazing school. So UNR, there's your plug
Yeah.
for the day.
Go Wolfpack.
Go Wolfpack. That's
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah.
So within criminal law, why did you decide to go into that?
I think it's one of those. I mean, to be honest, it's one of those decisions you make at 18 with no life experience.
Totally.
So, although I was successful in that short stint in that field, my personality is not well suited to have done a long-term career in that path. I think that there are a lot of the movies, the media depict a lot of glamorous is not the right word, but a lot of jobs in that field that are that aren't a lot of those jobs, and most of them are some very hard jobs like in the prisons and things like that. And so just wasn't a good fit for me.
Did you go through, and maybe Riley did, I went through the big book of careers when I was starting to think about what I wanted to do and major in, and it's just at 17 and 18, that's so overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. It is.
Our kiddos went to school together at Rouge. I mean, Connor, he'll probably kill me for saying this. He still is not really sure what he wants to be when he grows up.
Right.
And we tell him all the time, that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. I mean, I think that you can spend your whole life figuring it out, and that's okay too. So,
I mean, there's
Let's just
people
be
at
honest.
16 know exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's just their path. It's
Right.
not everybody's path.
Right.
So you interned with, you said U.S. Customs.
U.S. Customs.
Because there was counterfeit issues.
There were counterfeit. U.S. Customs deals with a lot of things like crimes that are across international lines, and so that's all kinds of horrible crimes. Like that's drugs, that's child pornography, that's counterfeit goods. All of the.
And so was there a company you said in Sparks that had counterfeit problems?
There was, and so
Okay.
that company was called Hunting World, and they sold their goods in luxury places where people would go on vacation, mostly in Asia. And so it was a really amazing opportunity and experience for me because, I was 22 years old, right out of college, and I spent 5 years traveling everywhere. And everywhere overseas, I'd spend a month in Korea, I'd go to Europe, and at that point, navigating the world like that when you're young makes you very resilient, just able to handle different, whatever comes your way. So that was a gift to have that job. But,
I bet.
I would get to work, and the person that owned the company was really unhappy that people were ripping him off, counterfeiting his goods. So I'd get to work in the morning, and I'd show up with a cup of coffee in my hand, and he'd say, "I heard there's a fake watch in Singapore. I want you to go today." And so I would literally go home, pack my stuff, and go. And so it's not conducive to a normal life.
No.
You spend 5 years like that, and your friends stop inviting you,
Because you're never around.
Because you're never around. But it was a great moment in life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did that happen where he was like, hey, this is happening in Singapore, I need you to go?
Happened all the time.
What do you do when you get there?
Then you go to markets, different night markets where counterfeit goods are sold, and you look for them, and then you work with local law enforcement agencies
Interesting.
in the place.
Sounds a little dangerous.
It is. Some of those markets are happening at, late at night in
Seedy places.
But there's intellectual property crimes like counterfeiting of handbags or watches. So that's in one facet of it. But then there's not a whole other facet of like people counterfeiting malaria medicine. I mean, that's the fake Rolex is over here, but fake malaria medicine,
right?
That's in a whole different
that's scary.
category.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Right.
And then you were working with the authorities in whatever city that you were working in?
Yes.
Was that a challenge, like as far as language barriers?
It was a challenge, but most, a lot of times when you go places, people are speaking English.
Thank goodness.
So right.
That's probably one of my biggest fears of traveling abroad is just I want to be able to communicate with people. I'm a communicator, so that would be really frustrating if you can't.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for 5 years.
Okay. And why did you decide to get out of it?
I decided to get out of it because I got married, was pregnant with my first son.
That'll do it.
So that'll do it. That's kind of forces your hand on a life change like that.
Where were you when that happened? Where were you when you got married?
I was living in Reno.
Reno still? Okay.
Still Reno, yeah.
Wow. Was Reno home base for you?
It was home base.
Okay. And parents were still in Medford then?
They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get married. What year is this? You get married?
That's 1997.
Okay. You guys were dating, I'm assuming, while you're traveling?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then Riley comes along.
Yes.
Okay. When do you guys decide to move to Southern Oregon?
So when you live in Las Vegas, oftentimes your plan is how do you get out of Las Vegas when you live there? Especially coming from Southern Oregon, it's just, the pace of life is a little different in Las Vegas, and it's so beautiful here. My whole family was here. So when Riley was in kindergarten, is when I started working in the wine industry here. So I would load up both kids. So I had Lily had come along by that point. So I would load both kids up and drive from Las Vegas to Medford, and I would spend 6 months out of the year here working and learning winemaking, and then would go back to Las Vegas. So
Las Vegas or Reno?
Las Vegas at that point.
Okay, wait. So when did Las Vegas happen?
So from after I got married, I was living in Reno, but then moved to Las Vegas.
Why Las Vegas?
Because my husband was there.
Okay, gotcha.
Living in Las Vegas.
Working and living in
Yes.
Vegas. Okay. You would drive from Las Vegas to Medford?
I would, and I think about how I did that at this point.
How old were you?
I was 28.
I mean, I've done the drive from Reno to Vegas and back multiple times.
Yeah.
It ain't fun.
It's like driving through Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah, with two wild animals strapped in their car
Right.
seats.
I mean, and there's
Right.
nothing.
There's nothing.
You know, you hit Tonopah,
Right.
right? And that was like the halfway point.
Right.
And then once you got to Hawthorne,
Yeah.
you knew like a couple more hours and I'm
Yeah.
in Reno. And then even the drive from Reno to Medford, it's pretty, but still.
Right. You know, there are parts of Nevada where it's really kind of Twilight Zone-y out there, you know. You're kind of in no man's land.
It really is.
Yeah.
Where you could drive for 2 hours and not see another car.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's spooky. If you,
It
hey,
is
listeners,
spooky.
if you want to do something really bizarre, drive that drive. It's what, 7.5 hours, 7 hours,
Yeah, it's a trek.
but it's just nothing.
It is.
There's nothing there.
Right.
Some brothels, maybe.
A few of those.
Yeah, the red lights you would see.
Yeah.
So, why? I mean, I guess why? I know why Southern Oregon, because there's wine here. But what made you decide to do that? Drive and work in the wine industry?
Well, because we had the plan was always to relocate back here.
Gotcha.
And so when I was first starting out, it wasn't about wine exactly. And it's this is sounds like a silly story and a pretty simple story for how it got from point A to point B, but I remember looking for property here. So this is before I started making the trek here with the kids to work in the wine industry and looking for property to someday relocate here. And I remember finding a piece of property out in the Applegate, and I took my my dad with me to see it. And he's this funny guy. I mean, he's the kind of guy that makes everything good. You could be digging a ditch or having lunch with the Queen, and he's going to make everything equally as fun. I mean, he's got
love
this
him.
amazing attitude and funny. And so,
Do you think he'd do my podcast?
absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Okay. And so I remember going out to taking him with me and going out to look at this place out in the Applegate that was set up to be an organic basil farm. And so, you know,
That's very specific.
It is specific. And so it was really beautiful. And I said, well, gosh, you know, maybe I could be a basil farmer, you know, thinking about how you're going to reinvent yourself, you know, in your move.
Because you're thinking, I don't want to do my job anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so he looks at me and he says, can I swear on this show? Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Because the story's better with how he said
Okay,
it.
perfect.
So we get out there and I said, well, gosh, maybe I could be a basil farmer. And he was like, why in the hell would you do that? You should grow wine grapes. And I'm like, yeah, he's right, you know? And it's sort of, that's a funny story. It's kind of simple, but it really got me on the path to that. And at that time, there were vineyards starting to come into the valley, and it's been really fun to watch the progression of that. And gosh, to be part of something like that has had so much forward momentum is amazing. And so it's at that point where I started to connect with different people in the industry, and people were kind of taking me under their wing, helping me get started and showing me what to do, who to call, how to go about planting a vineyard on your property. And
Crazy.
Yeah.
How much property was this? Is this the property that exists today?
No, so this is a property that's a little bit farther out in the Applegate, out Thompson Creek Road, and it was 27 acres, and the first vineyard planting was just 2 acres.
Okay.
So baby steps.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that your dad started all of this.
Yeah.
He basically just said, why would you do basil? Basil's
Yeah.
delicious.
I mean, I love pesto, right?
Right?
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's
Totally.
good, but it's the glamour and the allure of grapes too, and just what you have in your mind in the beginning of that, not knowing that it's like hard ass farming, every single day. But
Hugely.
yeah,
And I also love the belief that he has in you
yeah,
to just go, don't do this, do this.
Right.
And yeah, you can do it.
yeah.
So you start baby steps. Do you go to school at any point to learn about grapes?
Right. So I had an opportunity to apprentice at Roxanne
Nice.
Winery when they first started. So their first vintage when they opened their facility here. And so I can remember the first day. I mean, this is almost embarrassing to even say this, but I can remember the first day going to work there, and I had on a white like button down like little cardigan, and it's so ridiculous to think of that because I don't even think I own a white shirt at this point in time.
Rachel, you are adorable. That's awesome.
So I show up, with an attitude just to kind of take in everything I can and to learn, and that was an amazing opportunity there.
Did you get grape juice on that white shirt?
Oh my gosh! I mean, it lasted like 5 seconds, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was like baptism by grape juice in your white button-down cardigan. And then, so I was able to work there for, I worked there for 10 years until I had the courage to open Red Lily with no lifeline in. And then I have taken a lot of chemistry classes. I mean, I hadn't had chemistry since I was 15.
Yeah.
And I didn't particularly like it then. So that's a big piece of the wine making. And so I have worked really hard in order to, master that part of the.
Well, Roxanne's in my notes because that's where I remember seeing you from, actually.
Was I wearing the white cardigan?
No.
Okay.
It was probably a few years after.
Probably
You
when I
learn
was
a few things.
A little more seasoned.
Which is
yeah.
funny because I tend to wear white at a lot of wine events, and people always give me crap. They're
Yeah.
like, well, you're brave wearing white. And I'm just
Right.
like, psh, I laugh in the face of danger.
Sure.
And to this day, have never had to throw out any sort of white dress.
Well, there
so
you go.
the next time I wear white at a
Yeah.
wine event, it'll totally happen.
It will.
But it sounds like Roxanne working there. Did you work for them, or were you doing other things on the side?
So I worked for them,
Okay.
and then I was a custom crush client there for Red Lily.
Gotcha. And that came later, I'm assuming.
That came later. So I started there in 2001, and then the first vintage of Red Lily was 2003.
Okay.
That
Were
was
you at 2001 at this point? Were you guys relocated up here, or were you still doing?
No, I was going back and forth,
Dude,
driving through the desert.
that's
And
insane.
that was really possible because my parents have been in the trenches
Yeah.
this whole time. They were helping watch the kids. I think the day Lily got her first tooth, I drove to work to Roxanne. So with my parents, my mom home with, a crying
Oh man.
baby. Yeah.
Was that hard?
Oh, it was hard.
I bet.
Yeah.
Did you miss out on some things?
That's a hard thing to juggle, motherhood and the intensity that the harvest has.
Yeah.
So
Because at Harvest is it's not really full time. It's like overtime, right?
it is, and because it's a concentrated period of the year, so you can really do that for a concentrated period, and then the rest of it is hours that are more conducive to
Right.
a family life.
I mean, you could even say, I think stay-at-home moms tend to miss out on some things with their kids just because that's life.
Sure,
That's life.
it is.
But it's hard, and I know a few moms who have chosen to stay at home, and it's amazing. And I know a lot of moms who work full-time
Right.
plus
Yeah.
with babies at home, and they just do it.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Everything-
that was you.
It was me. And everything has its challenges. Every scenario has its challenges that are unique to that. So, I mean, I can remember Lily walking down the hill with a curling iron to the winery lab so that I could curl her hair before she went to school because it's picture day. And, that's just...
You just make it work.
You just roll with it. That's what you do.
Really do. Were there ever moments where there was that decision, though? Like, I can't be at the winery today because I have to be home with my kiddos.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, was that ever a struggle for you?
So I think for me it's been really having Red Lily and being like the boss of myself there has made it so that I have been lucky in the sense that I've been able to manage my time so that they have been able to come first. So, I mean, I might be at a basketball game smelling like booze and having a little fruit fly halo swarming around me.
Like Pigpen?
Like Pigpen. But I've been able to do that so that later I can, go finish my work at the winery. And so, gosh, I mean, that's a dream to get to have done that.
You are in the category of, I have lots of women in this category, Wonder Women. That's what I call people like us. I'm going to put myself in there. We're Wonder Women because we can do a lot of things, and we're good, hardworking women, and we've raised some pretty awesome kids, and
Yeah, thanks.
and all while working crazy hours and just making shit happen.
Yeah, right. Getting it done.
Getting it done.
Yeah.
I like that. I
Yeah.
really love that attitude. It sounds like Roxanne was a little bit of like graduate school for you.
It was a really great start for me because I got to watch, I got to work under a lot of different winemakers there. So the first one was Sarah Powell, who was
Wow, really?
amazing. And so, I really credit her she was a strong female, so that's amazing to have her, to have had her as a role model. And she spent a lot of time with me teaching me how to be a critical taster of wine and just all of the nuances. And that takes a lot of time to do with somebody. And I didn't realize it at the time in my white cardigan that, during harvest, it's intense. There's a lot of work. And for somebody to have spent the time that she did during that period of work,
Sure.
I didn't understand it at the time. I understand it now, and I love to be able to do that for somebody that's trying to get their start.
Is it safe to say that Sarah was kind of she was basically a foundation of winemaking in the Rogue Valley?
Absolutely.
One of the first.
Absolutely.
That's amazing that you learned under a female for the first time. That's kind of rare.
Yeah, it is. And so that was amazing because I got to see, her, she was doing it. And so for me, it was like, okay, I might be able to do this one day. She's doing it.
She can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Who came next?
And so then after that was Gus Janeway. And he worked at Roxanne. He had his own label, a wine label at the time, and he is an amazing person. And so every winemaker that you work under, you pick up different things, different tools for the toolbox, different approaches, or how they approach their winemaking style. And so he was a great guy to work with. And then after that was John Quinones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who's still
here.
Still there,
here,
still
yes.
making wine
Right.
for Roxanne.
He is making wine for his own label here,
Okay.
which is Diamondback.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's an incredible winemaker.
He is. He's the one who looks like Tom Selleck.
He does look like Tom Selleck.
I actually have a picture of him together, and it was at a Roxanne wine event, and I posted on Facebook, and I was like, look, I'm hanging out with Tom Selleck.
Right.
I think he thought it was funny. I'm not sure.
Well, that's a compliment because Tom Selleck's hot.
Tom
Hello.
Selleck's gorgeous.
Right.
Super sexy older man. So see, John, it's a compliment.
It is a compliment.
At what point do you decide, was it always, I want to do this on my own, or were you thinking, I can just make wine for a winery?
Yeah.
Like, at what point did it start out that way, or at what point did you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do my own thing?
So it was always the goal to have to be able to work to have my own place. It was never a goal to have a tasting room. So that falls under the category of things Rachel never thought she would do, which is make white wine, have a tasting room. And you know, it's an evolution of how you start off. And you know, I think that when you start off, or for me anyway, you underestimate how difficult it is to sell your wine. So without having an actual spot, a location where people can, you can tell your story, they can identify with what you are all about. And so, you know, my favorite part is making the wine. I mean, I love making the wine, but you have to sell the wine in order to keep making the wine. So it's a pretty simple equation.
That's how that works. You
Yes.
got to sell some stuff too.
You do. So
I remember seeing you when it was still World of Wine.
yes.
And it was I think it was your first World of Wine.
Yes.
And it was just you.
Yes.
At this table. Was that 2003?
Yeah. That was 2005.
2005. It's just you at this table. You have a few bottles of Red Lily.
Right.
And this carafe. And you're
Right.
pouring wine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this. People were going gaga over your stuff. Like,
I don't remember
I do.
that. I remember being so nervous to pour at that event because, you know, and at that point too, it's in the beginning of when I had ever poured at a public event, and it's like all of your blood, sweat, and tears that are in this bottle, and
for people to critique.
You've got your heart on your sleeve, and you haven't become seasoned enough to take the good and the bad with that, because, you know, wine is a subjective thing, and not everybody's going to love your particular wine.
It's true.
So it's just, you know, it takes a little bit of time to kind of get in the rhythm of taking the, you know, the good and the bad,
Yeah.
because you see people that respond favorably, and then you know the look that when people have on their face when it's not their thing and they don't love it.
It ain't their cup of tea.
And it's hard to see that look when you've worked
Yeah.
so hard at a product. And you know, that wine was tannic as hell, that 2003. And I love those wines that kind of take your head off. But you know, that's a wine that is
I remember you saying that.
yeah.
I remember you every time we would pour a taste for someone, you're like, it's young.
Yeah.
It's really young.
Yeah.
But still, a lot of people at that event, and then afterwards, it was just like, have you tried Red Lily? Have you tried
Yeah.
Red Lily? The Tempranillo is amazing.
Yeah.
And you were just making Tempranillo, right?
Just making Tempranillo.
So when do you decide to pull the trigger and get this tasting room? Because you just wanted a winery.
Right. So it became pretty clear early on that you need a tasting room, an actual place where somebody can come and taste your wines. And
In order to,
experience it.
like-
In order to make it. So that first year, the first vintage of 2003, you know, I only made 98 cases. And so everything's been, you know, baby steps. And, you know, at 98 cases, I thought, gosh, if this whole thing falls apart, you know, my Irish family is going to be able to drink this at a family reunion. We're going to be fine.
No sweat.
Right. But it just, you know, there's a lot of competition for wine. There's a lot of great wines being produced in the valley. And it's just, it makes it a little difficult if you don't have an actual brick and mortar place for somebody to come.
How did the 98 cases do?
The 98 cases did well, and I still have I held back about 12 cases of that wine in library, and that wine is just really coming into its own. And
Crazy.
It is crazy, and it's so, I don't know how to make this sound like, not like a Hallmark
Oh, just
card,
do it.
but I'm going to go for it. It's just, when you make wine from year to year, it's just, it's time in a bottle. You know, I can remember, like, I always laugh that I feel like that 2003 vintage tastes like love and fear, you know, at the same time, because, I just can remember exactly how that felt. You know, and what the weather was like, and just all of the things that went on during that vintage.
That's a beautiful description, because I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
You know,
in different ways.
You're so in love with this
Yeah.
thing that you did, this huge project. But yeah, there's a lot of fear in there too.
Right.
And as you said, blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you put your life into this.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I mean, I don't want to be dramatic. I don't want to be Hallmark, but there was a little bit of time away from your kids in this wine.
Right.
And your family. And
Right.
so a lot of sacrifice comes with that.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, let's get back to the tasting room.
Mm-hmm.
What year are you like, ugh, we got to do it?
Boy, early on, you start making a couple hundred cases of wine, and you understand that you know, that the tasting room needs to be in the works.
Where were you selling your wine from?
Selling my wine through Roxanne.
Nice.
That was great. I was able to sell it there, and at 98 cases, you can do that. You know, if you add another 100, that years as years stack up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So early on, do you guys find this property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's stunning property.
That property is, I love that place. I feel I've never worked so hard in my life. I knew that I was going to work hard out there, and it's, you know, having property like that is so much work. But I feel like almost a reverence to that place. It feels like when you cross the bridge that it is a different time, you know? And I think that place was on the market. You know, it came on the market in 2006, and you know, it was such a stretch for us to try to get that place. And you know, the backup plan was really, really unattractive if it didn't work out. But we were, you know, it was one of those points in your life where it's like, you've got to go for it, because the regret you're going to feel having not gone all in is going to feel bad at this point, after having just put so much time and energy into this project that has momentum. And being on the river, you know, and being right on that main artery of the Applegate Wine Trail were two huge things. And so, yeah, we just went for it at that point.
That scares me.
Oh my gosh, it still scares me.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it is a difficult thing to pull off.
And I think, you know, there are ways you can go about getting something like that you want. You've done baby steps for your whole life. This wasn't a baby step.
Right.
This was just you're jumping off the cliff and you're...
The whole enchilada.
You're either going to sink or swim.
Yeah.
And just that idea of that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it was 2000, that place opened in 2011, August of 2011. And so the first vintage in that facility was the fall of 2011. And it was a hard vintage. It was a vintage with a lot of rain. And the stress that I felt at that moment of time was palpable. I knew that the success of the tasting room was going to be dependent on what I could get into the bottle.
Right.
Myself, with no lifeline out there.
Right.
You know, my first year on my own, and, you know, it would rain and it would rain, and I just, thinking back on it now, you know, that was a dig deep.
I bet.
Year.
You guys opened the tasting room, you said 2011?
Yes.
Okay. You guys put a lot of work out into this facility. It's stunning.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks.
beautiful. Obviously, there's no place that looks like Red Lily in Southern Oregon.
I think it's such a unique property. It's an old cattle ranch, and some of those barns were there.
No way.
The barn that's connected to the tasting room is 100 years old. It was a cattle feeding barn, and so it was important, you know, which we have renovated for more tasting space. But it was important to us to have the new buildings fit the rural surroundings. So
Totally.
it didn't look like it was a, Tuscan place dropped from space into the Applegate.
Yeah.
And so I think that the designer, Ken Snelling, did a really good job of honoring that and just, making that look like it fit.
It's beautiful. Was Red Lily, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know the answer to this. It seems like Red Lily was one of the first wineries where you guys offered that table side tasting, where you could just go grab a seat and someone would come by and pour you a taste of wine and keep going through the flight.
So we did that early on, and it wasn't something that we could sustain because of the amount of traffic. So we had to gear that. That was the idea.
It was amazing
initially, and it was really good while it lasted. But it was just something that was not. We just couldn't service the amount
There's no
of people
way.
through.
I mean, I've seen you guys on a busy day. There's just no way you can do that anymore. Really anywhere.
Right. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Piper.
Oh, Piper. I love Piper.
Me
She's like a sister
too.
to me.
She was the best.
Yeah.
I absolutely. And I would literally go to Red Lily and taste wine with Piper, and we would talk about beer the entire time.
Oh, right. She's amazing.
Good beer drinker.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have kind of changed for you guys at Red Lily,
Right.
over the years.
I think that we have flexed and figured out what works well, what we do well, and we've tried to, some things that you do, you understand that you're working too hard for the result, or it's just not a good fit for our property, or what makes sense. So I think that the first couple years, it's like the learning curve is steep. You're being like shot out of a cannon every day, trying to adjust and figure out what makes sense for you, for your business model. So I think that we are, the staff that we have there has been, a lot of those people are day ones. They, and so we've got this well-oiled, strong staff that can really roll with things and are really just amazing.
Did you grow grapes on the property?
Yes.
Do you use those?
Yes.
Okay. If this sells, what are you going to do? Is Red Lily going to go away?
That's a good question. It's been a difficult thing for me to have on the market, for sure.
I bet. This is your baby.
It is. And so that's been some things that have taught me a lot about life and being, that the only constant thing is change, and you have to sometimes embrace it even if you don't want to, even if it wasn't your original plan. So I'm trying to be honest, I'm really trying to stay in the moment with it, and not thinking about what will happen, because I feel like once I step out of that mindset that of being present and doing the best job I can there now, that it loses a little bit. So a lot of the scenarios could have me still being there making the wine, which could be a really great thing for me, if the situation was right. So
I love that. I just love you for saying that, because that's one of my mantras, is just to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Because so many times, and I fail at that sometimes, but it's hard to be in the moment.
It is hard. So this has taught me that, and that's a gift too.
Right. My husband always says there's no stress in the moment.
Yeah. Right.
It's true.
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true.
And I'm sure it's got to be tough. Are you concerned? Do you want to sell it to the right person too? Is that?
I do, and so I have that kind of dialogue with myself internally all the time.
Sure.
You want to sell it to somebody that loves it as much as you and has the same vision, or wants to then take it to the next level, because I feel like there's so much more potential there that hasn't been realized. So that's the one side of me, and then the other side is acknowledging that you don't always have that kind of control over something.
Totally.
And you know, you don't really own anything. We're all just kind of passing through, you know, and somebody else's idea, even though it hasn't been mine, could be good and different
For sure.
in another way.
And your way of doing things is not necessarily the right way, and all
those things.
All of those things.
Right.
I know why the lily.
Yes.
Why the red?
So I thought, so that name came after a lot of hours of wine drinking, you know, as most good ideas do. So red lily, so yes, lily is a big part of that, my daughter. And it is, a Bowlander's lily is a lily that grows in the area, which is a brownish red color. And I thought that when I was thinking about names that, you know, you're always thinking about brand recognition, like what, if your wine is on the shelf and with all the other wines, what is the one thing that's going to make somebody pause and maybe take another second to look at your label or read your label, or why the red lily? And so I think that most people, when you think of lilies, you almost think of white lilies.
Yes.
A lot of the times. And so I think red lily was something that maybe caused that pause, and for people to take a second thought about what the label meant. And I was really focused on red wine production, so that was another part of it. And you know, I always feel like the Australians do a really good job with naming their wines, because I feel like a lot of those names create the pause. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
So, and I always thought if Lily had red hair, it would have been really perfect, but too far to go for marketing, you know?
Dang it, Lily.
I know, so...
should have made her dye it at like 8.
I should have.
But red's kind of been a signature color for you guys, obviously with marketing, and the red. We got to talk about the red boots.
I got the red boots. I got them on today. Well, red's my favorite color too.
Same here.
So it's just, and I feel like the red lily image is strong and feminine. And red is a positive color, I feel like.
It's also an attention getter.
It is an attention getter.
That's why I like it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, hello, look at me, red. Do you go through a pair of boots every harvest?
So the sad part for me is I'm really hard on these boots. And so I'm going through, you can see
they're rough.
These ones are taking on water already. And I've only had these like 3 months.
You got a hole in these, girl.
I know. My sock is wet, actually.
Seriously?
As we speak, yes.
You've had these for 3 months?
I have.
My boots, they're not red, but I mean, I need to go dirty. I need to come out and help you.
You need to break those in.
I really, really do.
I mean,
they're too clean.
The British Army are supposed to wear these boots, and I think they must be kind of soft because, you know, they're not holding up.
It's a good point. We need to talk to the manufacturer. We're not going to mention the name, but you probably all can figure it out.
Yeah.
Did Riley ever get upset that his name isn't on a wine bottle?
So that's great. So Riley, we have a lot of great conversations about that. And so Riley, we have this dry erase board in the kitchen of the tasting room, and Riley will go through there and he'll write Red Riley, Life of Riley, all of these names about him. He says he's going to open up a business down the road someday. Yeah.
He turned 21?
He did turn 21.
Oh, man. Connor's January will be 21.
Yeah.
Is it weird?
It is weird. I was at a restaurant with him where he ordered a beer, and it was a very strange thing.
We never made alcohol a big deal in our house.
Yeah.
I mean, Connor's had a glass of bubbly with me on multiple occasions.
Right.
New Year's Eve, his birthday. I mean, we've never glorified it. We've never made it a big deal, and it's just not a big deal for him.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Right.
So I don't know if that's the right or wrong way. That's just how we did it in our house.
It's been like that at my house too.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, we're going to wrap up a little bit, but harvest is going well.
It's going well. This is a year that we've gotten a lot of water on the front end, and so I feel like we've lost some harvest days in the front, and it's made it a little compressed. But it's been going good, and there's been a lot of hang time for the fruit. So
awesome.
I mean, what is coming in is great, and
you said, gasp, you had to make white wine at some point.
Yes.
in this career?
Yes.
Not a white wine fan?
Well, I'm not. I do appreciate white wine. It wasn't something that I thought I would be making because I just was so focused on the reds and the Tempranillos. But whites are challenging. It's like somebody once told me that white wine was like a woman with no makeup. That it's just, you have to be, it's just pretty raw like that. I think that's a good description.
You have to enhance it?
You have to, yes. It's like the barrel, if you think about the barrel as like an aging, something that helps wine, and white wines are just a little more easy to have flaws, easy to have anything like that.
Interesting. And you won an award at Oregon Wine Experience this past year. What did you get again?
I got a gold for Life of Riley, which is a blend of Tempranillo and Cabernet.
Riley, there you are.
There you are, Riley. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
you.
But you've won several awards, we should say.
Yes. I mean, that always feels really good to get some hardware at an event in our own backyard, and yeah, that feels good.
Awesome. You have been a delight.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun to talk to you. And
well, the funny thing is, yeah, we've known each other because our kids went to Rouge together.
Right.
The sweetest school in Southern Oregon. But we've known each other that way and through wine events. And you're on my list, obviously, to interview for this podcast. But I'm just finally glad we got to do it.
Yes.
And I learned so much about you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Final three. I did prep you on these.
Yes.
Best advice you've ever been given.
So the best advice, I've been giving so much advice. It's really, I had to really think about that. But as it pertains to the wine business, I remember back in, this was 2003. I was talking to Brian Wilson, who has been a staple in
Love that guy.
The wine business. He's done so much for the wine business in Southern Oregon. He's somebody I have so much admiration for as a winemaker, and he's just an incredible guy. And so I can remember talking to him at that point, and I was voicing my stress over when to pick the grapes. And he said, he looks at me and he laughed and he said, "Whenever you pick them is the perfect time." And, you know, I think that that's really true. And it not only pertains to when you pick your grapes, but it pertains to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes you sit around waiting for the perfect time, and sometimes the perfect time's now, if that makes sense. And I think about what, I mean, he probably doesn't even remember saying that to me, but I think about that most vintages that come around, you know, like when I'm out there trying to, you know, make a decision, and I think about how he said that to me, even the cadence in his voice. It's just the perfect time to pick them is when you pick them.
Oh man, I've gotten so many good nuggets from you today. That's so good.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah.
And you think about that too, making career changes. Not that I'm leaving KTVL anytime soon, but I'm going to at some point. And so I think about that. When's the right time to do it?
Yeah.
Whenever I do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's really good. Thank you, Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
I should have him on this podcast.
You should. He would be great for you to have on
Okay,
there.
I'm going to write that down too.
Write it down.
If you ever left this place, Southern Oregon, what would you miss the most? What would bring you back here?
I mean, we are so spoiled living where we do because it is everything good.
Look at today.
It's beautiful, and we just have access to so many incredible things. But I think what I would miss the most is just sense of community. I think that this is a place that is where people are rooting for you know?
So true.
And I think that in both good and bad times, I think that this place has a unique ability to come together. And we see it all the time in our community. And so I would really miss that because that's really important to me.
A friend just opened a tasting room in Jacksonville, and they had industry night last night, and there were so many industry people there
Yeah.
rooting for them.
Right.
It makes me super happy.
Yeah, me too. And that's a great thing to be a part of.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Final meal, final drink. What would that look like?
It would definitely be some kind of like red wine, and it would be French fries and ketchup.
French fries and ketchup.
Yeah, that's my kryptonite.
Like homemade French fries?
Like any kind of fries. Any kind.
Do you have a favorite right now? Like if you could have any fry,
Yeah.
I mean like fast food or
Yeah.
like fancy restaurant fry?
Gosh, this sounds.
No, say it.
McDonald's fries are like kind of the pinnacle of fries, aren't they?
They're pretty good.
I mean, let's be honest.
Are you a fan of In-N-Out fries?
I do love In-N-Out, but I'm not a fan of In-N-Out fries. They're a little too healthy, potato-y. Like I need a little more like salt, a little more hard fry.
My grandma and my mom make the best French fries.
Really?
So we have that Irish blood in
Yeah.
us, and that's my mom's kryptonite is
Yeah.
any sort of potato
Yeah.
anyway.
Sure.
But that woman makes the best French fries ever. My mom makes the best French fries.
Well, if it's my last meal,
Okay.
then I'm coming to her house.
I'll call up Mama.
Okay.
But yeah, best French fries on the planet. I love that you said French fries
so
too.
good.
If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We're also on Google Play and Stitcher. You can check out the video portion at ktvl.com. Just click on features and then off script. One more time, Rachael Martin of Red Lily. Thank you so much for being here. This
Thank
was
you for having me.
an absolute blast.
It was a great day.